Okay, got it. And yes, we are live. Hello and welcome to the Hedonistic Way at Midday Show. I am Renee Main, and this woman isn't afraid to shake shit up. She speaks the unspoken. She will push the edges of your mind. She is neurodiverse and epic thinking, and that is exactly what is required for those of us who really crave and hunger to go rogue. She is a system breaker, a vision creator, a torch bearer, paving the way for businesses and holding space for other visionaries in their business and finances. I'm so excited to bring Abbey Rose to the show today. Welcome, my darling.
Oh my God, what an introduction. I'm like listening, going, wow.
Who is this woman?
That's so awesome. I'm even like tearing up. Oh my goodness. Thank you. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here and to be able to just share my message to another audience. And yeah, I'm just, feeling full.
Good. Thank you. I'm so glad that I reached out to you, and you're someone who I've been noticing pop up on my feed, and just the people that you just start to jam with and you're like, yep, digging their vibe. And something that really attracted me to you was I just got this flavor of like, you are unafraid to just shake shit up. And sometimes it can feel like the voices merge and the words merge, and it's the same thing that's being said around us, and then every now and again you get this little bomb of goodness that just explodes in front of you, that just goes, you know what, like, I'm just going to tell it how it is. So I feel like you've got a really beautiful combination of what is real and also what is possible. So tell me about, I'm really called to ask you about like that flavor of you being unafraid to speak your truth and to speak what most people are thinking that don't say, or even to create another little gateway or a path for a new way of people to think. I've seen you do that more than once as well. So have you always had the courage to do that?
No, I haven't. And it's funny. I feel like even in the last 6 months, how much I've just expanded in myself to be that person that does speak into the things that are unspeakable. And I would say, like, I do it in a space of like, I've got to be certain within myself and unwavering, because in the past, I get a lot of, not a lot so much anymore, but there has been backlash, right? Because I am speaking into things that go against traditional, right? And I'm in no way a traditional accountant, and I've had accountants lash out at me. I've had lawsuits threatened, because if I speak into certain things a certain way, it shakes them, right? Because it's challenging their beliefs and what they've been conditioned to know, or how to act and respond. Anyway, it takes courage, yes, but I think like it's like you can align it with your self-worth journey, right? Because the amount of self-worth and self-acceptance and self-love that you have, high self-esteem and confidence that you have in yourself, that makes you so unwavering. When you do start to share your truth, people feel that energy and they gravitate towards it, right? Now, when people feel that, they'll either be triggered by it or they'll be attracted to it. So it's like you can't have one without the other. So you need to cultivate that internal relationship for yourself to be like, okay, how, like, what message do I want to portray? What energy do I want to portray? And how do I want to feel? Like, what emotion do I want to invoke in my community? And being okay that even if you get the backlash, that doesn't change who you are. It doesn't negate what you say. You're just challenging their beliefs, and that's totally okay. It's like there's this whole big mixture of like finding the compassion in it as well. And like I'm not even going to lie to you, like still even the other day I'm starting to really push some edges now when I speak about sovereignty and when I speak about taxes and I speak out about the government. And I've even started making it more public knowledge about my beliefs around COVID and all of that. And I'm like, there's that fear there. There's always going to be that fear. I'm never going to not be scared to speak my truth. But is that fear empowering me or disempowering me? So it's not saying it's not there. It's just like, how is that fear driving me? And then I sort of act from that space, try to go to the empowered place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so hard. And I think that's what a lot of people who aren't necessarily in the space, they don't understand just how much courage it does take to stand that ground. And one of my friends, she said a few years ago, I did an online summit, and she was talking, and and she was like, don't be afraid to pick a side. She said, because if you're sitting on the fence, then and you spend so much time worried about, if I come out and say this, and you're scared about, you don't want to polarize people, or you don't want to offend anybody. She said, but all you're doing is just like moving through and like sifting through the people who jam with you and the people who don't. And that's a great thing.
Yeah, I couldn't care less if I lost 50 followers over one post, if that post was me speaking in my truth, because me speaking into that, I might lose 50 followers, but then I might gain 300.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, I'm picking up what she's putting down. I want to drink from that Kool-Aid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, picking a side, right?
Exactly. That's right. And that's something that I'm really curious about, when I was, kind of feeling into you when I was writing the promo last week. And that's, you speak and you help people about business and finances. And as you said, it is in an unconventional way. But I feel like there's like a depth to you that I want to say that you're really entering into, or that you're really beginning to share with you. So I'm really curious to hear about your journey with business, with finances, and what's that undercurrent that I'm feeling that's happening right now.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Like, what a journey. So I was always outside of the box. I was always, I started my accounting career when I was 20 and I never fit in. I was the blonde woman in a mainly middle-aged, balding man dominated. Do you know what I mean? Like, so my whole career I've been against, what is this like beautiful young woman who's smart? Like, how does that work? So I've always had to prove myself in that respect. Yeah. But now I feel like I really get to sit in that, because it's going to be the very thing that actually attracts people, because I have that warmth. But yeah, the technical side of things, like the technical career that I had, going into accounting, starting my first bookkeeping firm, starting my first accounting, rebuilding business, working, like I've worked in business my whole career, my whole life, and not just one business, right? I've worked in a multitude of different businesses in different demographics, in different markets, and I've learned through a lot of failures in those businesses, in my own business as well. And then from that, I've created, it's like this skill of being able to read between the lines. So I look at financial data and financial information, and I totally get my nerd on, because when I'm reading that information, it tells me a story, right? And then I go back to the business and I'm like, well, what story do we want to create? What story do we want to create? And then that's when like the feminine inside of me gets excited, because then I get to create. I get to create outcomes, and I get to create change in the business for the business owner, or for their staff, or for their family, and really help them pave a way for them, so that like lights me up.
Yeah.
But it's always been unconventional, because there's been that intuitive part to it. So it's like, yes, I have the accounting skill, and like that I've learned over my career, but it's like this intuition that comes in. And when the more I'm connected to myself, and the more I receive those hits and follow that guidance for myself, I then can help other businesses do the same for themselves. Right. So once I started that spiritual journey and that spiritual evolution, I really merged these two worlds of like accounting, finance, practicality, strategy, like, you know, let's do these like KPIs, and what's your profit ratios, and how do we want to increase your net worth, and how are we going to protect your wealth and super and all that sort of shit. And then it's like over here, it's like intuitively, oh, you know, like what's vision, purpose, drive, passion, how are these businesses creating impact? And I get to merge like soul purpose and alignment, and, you know, tapping into your flow, and upgrading your abundance codes and your wealth codes, and, you know, like, and I get to like put it all together in this kind of like, you know, and then I just show up, right? So it's not going, all right, well, I have to be a certain way for everyone. It's just like I show up for people in what they need in that moment. And sometimes I'm showing up for people when they just need to lodge a tax return, and I'm going, you know what, hey, it's okay that you haven't lodged, or it's okay that you are carrying a bit of shame or fear around this part of your life. Let's deal with that. But then instead of just band-aid fixing it, look at what got you there and change the behavior so it doesn't happen again, you know. So it might be just that, or it might be going deeper into the soul alignment stuff and the business stuff and the strategy stuff and that. But it's like I get to just show up in whatever capacity the person needs in that moment. And for me, that's what it, like, that's just the impact that I get. Yeah, I hope that what was the question? I don't know. When I go on tangents all the time. People who's watched my videos, they know I'm a tangent person.
But that's good, right? It's like you follow the thread, you know, you follow the path of aliveness, right? That's what we do. You've mentioned something, and I just want to like pick up on that. Is you mentioned like the stories in between, and so, and how we can potentially change those stories to, you know, to step up to, you know, whatever it is. I want to ask you about that, because I feel like this is, especially for those who are in the spirituality space, the heart-centered space, you know, it's really easy to get, I'll say, sucked into this path of, you know, you want to do what's right, you want to do what's good, you want to serve other people, but then in that there's can be a real sense of self-sabotage, and as you said before, worth issues as to why you're not stepping up. So I'd really like to hear your thoughts around those stories in between, and how can people like navigate between, how do they know when a story that they think is good and right and soul-centered, but it's actually self-sabotage?
Yeah, totally. Right, because this is understanding the truth of your soul, the language of your soul, because not everyone is meant to be, you know, presenting to the masses.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like when it's like, I especially see it in the spiritual community, that it's like forced onto people that everyone has to be like this raving 7-figure success and like all the things, right? But everyone is so unique. Like I use a lot of astrology, and when I'm looking at people's charts, I will see like what their you know, blueprint is, and we decipher the language of your soul and find out what is that space of alignment. So for some people, the space of alignment would be serving to the masses and making millions of dollars. And what normally happens is when people come to me for a wealth recalibration, they're essentially coming to make more money. One of two things can happen. They step into their soul purpose and they start making a fuck ton of money, which is always cool. Or they step into their soul purpose and they realize that they don't want that money and it's about the service, right? But the service is also, the money is a byproduct of that service, right? So sometimes that self-sabotage can be someone going, I don't want that level of success because what does that mean for me? You know, what am I fearing that success because I can't hold it? Or if I have like, because the money is a byproduct of the energy that you're putting out. And if you haven't expanded your capacity to hold that energy, this is why a lot of people, they'll do like programs and they'll go, yeah, I made my first 10 grand month, and then they won't make any money for 6 months. Right? It's because they've expanded their energy, but not held it. And it's come, but they haven't held it, and it's crumbled because the foundations weren't there. So they have to then go through more to expand their energy, but to hold it. You know, and that can sometimes be the practicality of it or the energetics of it or whatever. But like ultimately your purpose and your vision and the mission and the reason that you're here and your alignment to that comes in understanding the language of your soul and understanding, well, what feels good for you? Does it feel good for you to stand on a stage and speak in front of 1,000 people or 10,000 people? Does that feel good for you? Or does that scare the living shit out of you? And you're like, no, I would just rather work one-on-one with a few clients, and I know my impact is, do you know? So it's different. I even say like on the financial space for this, like financial management, there's a spectrum, right? From one end of the spectrum being absolutely micromanaging the shit out of your finances and knowing every cent and knowing and having the budget and the forecast and all the things, right? For some people, that's like, ouch, yuck, right? But some people thrive off that space. Right? And then there's the other end of the spectrum where complete oblivion, in full trust and full surrender, and be like, universe always provides for me. I don't need to manage any finances because it's divinely managed. Right? And that's not avoidance. That's trust and surrender. That's empowering, right? But for some people, it's avoidance. Right? So it's like you have both polar ends of the spectrum, but you have the polarity at each end. So it's like finding where your sweet spot is. Do you need to financially, do you need to not? Like, where are you sitting in trust? Where you know, and it's the same by putting yourself out there. If you're sabotaging your success on some level, it's because there's a misalignment to the language of your soul and your core beliefs and your action and your behavior. So we go in and we look at that on a deeper level. It's never a clear-cut answer. This is why, like, the cookie cutter programs that coaches do, like, no offense if you've got a cookie cutter program, like, I love, they work for the masses, they work, but they're only like a small piece of the puzzle. If you want to do the deeper work, it's got to be personalized. It's got to be to you, to unique as your soul, so you can get to the goods.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And that's, you know, I've been in this space for 14 years, and you know, and I could have gone down so many different roads, and sometimes I have, but you get to that point where it's just like, what fills me up? Like, what and in my lane, I would say, what turns me on? Like, what is, and that's such a big driver. So I don't care what other people are doing. I don't care what's on trend, because it's like, I know what fills me up. I know what turns me on and how to get results for those that I serve. And
because that's the breadcrumbs too. Because when you start acting from that space, like you take one step towards the universe, right? And you follow from that soul aligned place. I guarantee you the universe will take 10 steps towards you. And this is how you become magnetic, right? It's not just being like, oh, I can access the quantum fields, I'm magnetic. It's like, well, yeah, cool, access that. What are you doing with the information?
Yes.
How are you behaving?
100%, exactly. I want to follow up on that too, but I do want to follow up on another thread, and that is you spoke about the polarities, and so what I picked up on there, and I just want to ask you to just like speak to that, is you were talking about the I was gonna that anal people who love who are all over the books, and then the people who are completely surrendered to the divine. So is what you're saying is it's not about finding balance and merging those two, which a lot of people would think, assume, teach, believe, whatever. So you're saying that you need to find your sweet spot.
Yes. Yep. Because and this is the problem that most accountants portray, right? Is if you're not doing a certain thing a certain way, it's wrong. You should be fearful of what the government will do, shame on you. And it's like, you know what? If I don't want to lodge my tax return for 5 years, I don't want to lodge my fucking tax return for 5 years. We can deal with that later, right? But it's like, it comes back to, how do you want to operate? What works for you? We know what doesn't work, and pressure for most people is what doesn't work, right? So whenever someone comes to me, like I just got off the phone with a new client, she hasn't done anything for 6 years, and I'm like, you know what? Like any account she would have gone to and spoke that into, like she's even been to one before, and she just copped so much, like what is it? Just bad energy. Anyway, they're all bad energies mostly. Please, if there's a unicorn account now, they're watching this. It's like, I'm not like that, I promise. Can you come work for me, because I need you? But it's like, I said to her, the exact words I said to her just before, like an hour ago, was, the best thing you could have ever done is not lodge a tax return.
Wow.
She was like, what? And I'm like, yeah. Right, we can devise a strategy that works for you, but we got to find, where are you optimizing your, like, look at your behavior, and where is the place, like that sweet spot of flow, where you don't feel any discomfort or disconnect or fear or shame, where you feel empowered by what you're doing. Find that spot and just go there, and like, you want to exploit that, because that's the sweet spot that when you're operating in that space, opportunities start landing for you, because you haven't got the mental clutter of feeling like, oh, well, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or, it's not good enough, or I have to have this system in place, or I still got people that I do financials for that are in Excel, because that's what works for them. It's what works, and it's about finding what works. And it's not a blanket. It's not a blanket.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate what you're saying, because there can be so many layers to it. It's that, like, it's that I haven't done my tax in 5 years, so therefore I feel some shame and guilt, so I'm avoiding going and doing something about it, which can be
exacerbating.
Or there could be like, nah, I just, like, it's just not my, like, I'm not feeling it, so, and whatever it is. And I really love that it's that intention underneath there.
Totally.
I want to go back to the soul. I was going to say soul codes, but I think like the soul, the language that
Mhm.
you spoke about earlier. Because I feel like a lot of people are really in this space of, because you were talking about, it's accessing the quantum field, and then what are we actually doing with that? And I find this probably to be, let's say, one of the biggest hiccups in what we do, is because like I want to say it's easy, but maybe not for everyone, but it's, to access the quantum field is relatively easy. What are you doing there? How are you implementing that? Because I really do believe that there's the trust element in that. So what's going on there, and what can people do about that to begin to ignite that trust and follow up on it?
Totally. So if you want to change your behavior, if there is something in your life that is not working for you, if you know you're not reaching your fullest potential, if you know that there's more money in your field around you, or there's entities, businesses that haven't landed, and you can see them, you can feel them, you know it's there, but you don't know what to do, right? We want to change our behavior.
Yeah.
And so for me, I've created my own modality, which is a 7-step transformational process, right? And what I find in the spiritual community is like we're going through the first 4 steps, which is awareness, understanding, surrender, transmutation.
Yeah.
So fucking easy. You go to a weekend workshop and you've got all those 4 steps covered.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're on like this spiritual high because we've shifted all this energy and we're like, yeah, I went to the quantum, I had amazing breath work and blah, 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 right? Then you go back into life, right? And this is the piece. It's the education, embodiment, and then alchemy, right? Alchemy is the net result of your education and embodiment of that enlightenment piece, right? So when you're understanding the translation of your soul, right, we're looking, that's the education piece. You got to understand, what is your soul telling you? You got to understand your triggers, your behaviors, your response to your emotion, your feeling, what it means for you. Go back to your childhood, what it means for you. Go back to your past life, go along your timeline, shadow work, all this sort of stuff. That's the education, because we need to re-educate ourselves, not to act from a place that isn't working. But first, it's even determining, is it working? Because a lot of people are walking around in behavior thinking it's working for them, not realizing that it's not, until it gets to a point where I usually say it's the feather, the brick, or the truck. Universe will tickle you with the feather. Hey, you need to change this. Don't listen. Then you get hit in the face with a brick. You still don't listen, and then you get hit by a Mack truck. Universe pulls a whole rug from underneath you.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've been there. Lost, single mother too, lost multiple businesses, bankruptcy. I've been there. The universe had pulled the rug out, and then the rug out even more so when the rug was already out. Right? We don't have to wait that long anymore. If you can be acutely aware of your responses emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, then you can be ahead of the game. So that's where that education piece is the biggest. It's like understanding your soul language from a very, very core, very personal level.
Yeah, I really love that. And it's that. And you know what I love about that is like, it's, you spoke to, you go to the workshop and you go and you leave on this big high, and then there's that crash, and I've been down that road so many times, and it leaves you in this constant pursuit of the high, right? And because you want the next hit, like it's a drug, like it's so addictive. But then what you're speaking to now is those last 3 pieces, is it grounds it anchors it, like you're planting roots and you're making it actually mean something. So I really love what you speak to there.
Yeah, it's like going from disconnect to connect, because in those spaces, in those workshops, we feel connected. That's why we get high. Sometimes when I'm running like a meditation or something, I'll be so high afterwards because I've just had so much energy coursing through me, right? But then it's not to say that you can't access that, but it's just you take that back into your life to find out what the access point is, So you can actually choose to keep going back there at any given time. I don't know that I just moved that out of my mind completely. I don't know why, but that's obviously gone now. Completely lost myself. Yeah, it's just, I love the high too, though. Like, this is why I even do it half the time, because it's so addictive. It fills me up. And I'd rather be addicted to a natural high like that than, there's other highs out there.
Absolutely.
Pleasure high is pretty good too. A pleasure high is pretty good. The personal development high is awesome, but I'll say the pleasure high is probably one of my favorites.
Yes, it's one of my favorite ways to access the field, that's for sure.
Well, self-pleasure has been one of the key ingredients of my success. Pleasure practice, manifesting practice, because I believe, because sex and money is so related. And whenever I'm working with people around their financial trauma, I'm treating it just as important as like sexual trauma, right? Because people have deep experiences in that space. And I don't think the financial trauma gets any kind of acknowledgement ever. So I treat it with huge regard and respect. But stepping into my business, for once I stepped into sexuality for myself and learning to reconnect to my womb and to my pussy and myself and my sexual essence and my life force, I learned how that became the driving force for my business. And it actually pushed me through so much growth by doing that I couldn't do it without it anymore, and it's like guaranteed, I self-pleasured 20 grand in my business one day. Like, I'm not even fucking kidding. But it's knowing that when you do something like that, what emotional thresholds are you going to have to push to receive it as well? So there's so like it's, people don't realize how much it's connected and how related it is. Yeah, so that's been a fun side of things.
Absolutely. You just spoke to something then that I'd really like to unpack a little bit more. Is that, is often, we want something, we want to manifest something, and even if we use pleasure in order to do that, no matter how you do it, but what is our capacity and our threshold to receive it? I would love for you to speak to that. And then how can people begin to expand that threshold to actually welcome it in?
Yeah. So manifestation, I always talk about manifestation is your soul's recognition of something that was always destined to come your way. So if you were sitting in like, I want to earn $1 million, or I want to be in a loving relationship, or I want to manifest a partner, or I want to manifest a job, or I want to, manifest a business or whatever. That is your soul recognizing something that's coming for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in order for you then to receive what's coming, you have to evolve to be the person that you need to be to receive it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if we look at it from a business and financial perspective, you're not going to receive $1 million business if you haven't got $1 million business practices in place. All right. This is where a lot of people say, like, you got to be the millionaire before you are the millionaire. You got to believe it. You got to believe it in your bones, and you got to be it before it lands. Before it lands. Right. But in being that $1 million business, or being, it's like, I usually sit with the 4 questions, and it's, what vision wants to emerge from me, right? What vision wants to emerge from me? And then who must I become in order for that vision to come alive? And what must I let go of in order for that vision to come alive? And then acknowledging the skills and the gifts and the talents that I already have. So it's like, when you're trying to manifest that $1 million business, you're then going into self-inquiry and self-awareness of like, well, what kind of person do I need to be for this? Who do I need to become? Because it's not going to land, like $1 million business is not going to land in your field if you haven't even got your bank account sorted, or you haven't got a merchant set up, or you haven't got any appointment scheduling system in place.
Yeah.
Right? So who do you need to become? What type of person?
Yeah.
And then what must you let go of, right? So what beliefs, what blueprints, what energy is holding you back from that? What have you, because we've always, every time I help people go through their financial, I would say thresholds, because it goes in stages, right? So each threshold has an emotional threshold to push as well. So I help people push through those thresholds to break through those ceiling, but then there's another ceiling, right? And sitting on the ceiling is garbage, right? So what have you got to, you got to clear the garbage, you got to get rid of the shit, right? So what have you got to let go of? And then being in deep gratitude and deep self, like honoring yourself for like, oh my God, if someone had told me 12 months what I would be doing today, I would have laughed at them, right? But I'm so grateful for my journey and my experiences and the people that have come into my life, and how I've just keep pushing through those thresholds to be of bigger service to people. So I find those 4 questions really, really helpful to push those, because you've got to be pushing yourself, right? You want to expand your energy to hold more, in turn to make more money. Like money is a representation of the energy that you're putting out. If you're not putting much energy out there, I guarantee you're not going to be receiving much. And a lot of people, they can't put their energy out because they're taking responsibility of other people's energy, or they're giving away too much, and they're prostituting their energy in ways and giving out all this free shit and not honoring themselves, or they're like looking after their family and taking burdens and responsibility, so they can't put out any energy. So it's nearly like a retraction, a fragmentation, and then coming back to wholeness so you can go back out again.
I love that. And I was talking to a friend yesterday saying, often if we're flaky in that, like if we're flaky in any part of, like the distribution of energy, or, we're not showing up there, then you can't really show up for your clients either. You're going to be flaky in your service, and there has to be that congruency piece, on the flip side of that, I also, there's a lot of people that would be putting a bucket load of energy out there and not receiving. So then there's the misalignment from that perspective as well. So what is that?
I think that is like a imbalance in the mass fem.
Yeah.
Because if you're give, but you not receive, I would go, well, what are you making it mean for you not to receive? Like, why can't you receive from your community? Like, why is it worthiness? Is it martyrdom? Is it guru? Like, what part of you is rejecting the receive side? What part of you feels like you have to give so much, but it's also coming into, because I do know, I like probably maybe a year, 18 months ago, I sort of went through this myself, where I was just giving so much, like so much free stuff, and giving myself out all the time. But it comes back to intention and purpose, because for me it was to build authority, right, to get myself out there. So I knew that I had to do that, because that's what I wanted. So anytime I went into that space of give, I check, what's my intention, what is my purpose for this? Is it, And it comes to a point, right, where I don't have any expectations over where I receive. So like I would run a 3-day program and it'd be a free program, but I have zero expectation of receiving from those. And what I see is people creating free programs, and they expect to make lots of sales from it. Right? They've got all these expectations and conditions over, I'm giving, so I've got to get.
Yes.
Right. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I would give in those spaces and I would receive in others.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of universal. It's like, if I'm going to give myself out, I'm open to receive in whatever way the universe wants to provide. I'm so open for that because I'm giving from a place of where I truly want to.
Yeah.
Right? There's no expectation attached, and I have clear intention and purpose behind it. And also what happens too is I've got this like, you know, because I receive in these spaces, I can give in those spaces. So I have like my legacy people, where because I have people paying me in these programs and in these resources, it frees up the time where I can give back in those other. So I'm like paying my tithing. So I'm constantly looking at the masculine and the feminine and the give and the receive, and making sure that it's always feels good for me. Am I giving? Am I still receiving? It even came up like 2 weeks ago, when saw one of my friends. She's extremely psychic, medium, intuitive, and she was like, Abby, are you allowing yourself to receive from your community? And I was like, that, right? And I had mind, body, spirit planned. I had business expansion, free program. I had all these, and it was going to be a massive week. And the universe was like, nah, mind, body, spirit got cancelled. I canceled my business expansion. I ended up just having like this week for myself, which was so needed. Needed, right? So we just have to, can't always be out there, can't always be, you know, what goes up must come down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Balance, constant.
Yeah, that's right. And that listening piece, right? Like, and that's, I'm a sucker for that. Like, I'm that humility stick, I call it. It's like you can feel it, you're at the edge, and then it's like no, you need to just slow down, give yourself some space. And that's
or you'll get hit by that Mack truck.
Exactly. That's something that I really get from you, is the union between your masculine and feminine.
Oh yeah.
I get that like really strongly from you. And so I really want to ask you about what has your dance, because usually someone's danced with one of them more and then they've integrated the other one. Like, how have you got to this space of union?
I actually married myself. Thank you for asking that question. That has been one of the biggest journeys of my entire life, because you could probably put me in that box of like masculine dominant, right? I'm ambitious, I'm driven, I love taking action, I'm like numbers nerd, I'm like do, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women will relate to this, is they get to a point where you get very tired, right? And I went through a lot of wounding around the masculine, with like sexual trauma and abuse, and then with the breakdown of my marriage as well. So I had a lot of wounding in that space. And I just completely 100% devoted and committed to harmonizing the balance between my masculine and femme. And what a lot of people will misinterpret is that I had masculine wounding. Not the case. I actually had feminine wounding, right? Which goes back, and there's a whole big story. And I will even name drop, because this guy absolutely changed my life. His name is Tyrone Mowbray. He doesn't do work with women generally. And he was like, you know, I help him with his accounting stuff, and he's like, fuck Abby, I love you, I'm gonna hold this space. I think he like helped me take an energetic shit, and I was like, Oh my God, no one's ever actually done that for me. And I think because you did that, like, we've got to work together. And he was like, yeah, cool, let's do this. And it was huge. It opened up so much for myself. But what I actually found in all of that is that masculine behavior is a driving force, and it's a power that I have.
Yeah.
And that masculine doesn't negate my feminine, right? They work together, right? And he holds and supports. So now I see when I'm in the masculine space how my feminine wants to play and show up.
Yeah.
And I remember I got the first visual intuitively, and it was like a lotus flower with all this magic coming out from it, and behind it was like these Black Panther, and it was like your masculine is like protecting and holding so that magic can come through. So I needed to cultivate a really safe relationship between the two of them, right? And so now it's not to say that I'm masculine or feminine. I'm totally both, but I can recognize, you know, where my strength of my masculine is and where the strength of my feminine is. And even one very important part is if I want to cultivate a relationship, like an intimate relationship, a romantic relationship, my masculine needs to get the fuck out of the way. Right? Because that's not going to help me. So I had to relearn. It was like I had to relearn how to be a woman. Right? Completely. Because we've grown up in this patriarchal society where we have to be a man, and you're the provider and you're the protector and you support the family and you are the main income earner and you do this and you do that. I'm like, yeah, but how is a man ever going to want me? And this is probably like, I don't know if anyone will agree with it, but if you really want a relationship, like a real loving relationship, you need to drop into your feminine and let the man love you. Because being in your masculine and trying to run the show and control shit and we need to go back in time a little bit. Maybe not even back in time. We need to evolve more. And this is where I talk about feminine rising. It's like feminine rising is not the feminine empowerment movement. It's the feminine in us coming up and taking her power, but also in the man, and allowing, like, oh, I could talk about it for hours. But anyway, I've seen how important this topic in my business, how it's created me success, because I've tapped into like this resource of feminine power that I'd never had before. But then also in my relationship, it's created such a deep and loving connection because she is allowing it. Right? And because she is being the woman, like even just the simplest of thing, like when I've spent a day working and I'm like doing shit, getting shit done, and I'm like, fuck, okay, now I'm gonna like go and have dinner with my boyfriend, and what am I gonna do? Oh, okay, all right, well, I'm actually just gonna have a transition phase between out of the masculine and into my feminine. So I'm going to go have a bath and light some candles. I'm going to rub some moisturizer on me. I'm going to do my hair and get into a pretty dress, or, you know, and really bring out the feminine, so that when I get to that scenario with my partner, I'm like dropped, and like he comes to hug me and he's like the big man, and I'm like, oh, and he's like, yeah, I'm cool, you know, and it just creates that sexual attraction because you've dropped.
I love that. It's so important. And that's, you know, we speak about worshiping a lot, and that sacred worship that can happen in any relationship. And that really is, you know, we speak about, you know, like in my little container, you know, interdependence, and that's allowing yourself to be held. You know, like femininity is not, or the feminine is not about going, I'm a woman and I'm independent and this. It's like, no, like just, you know, like revolutionizing what it means to be a woman, you know, is to go, yes, we've got this union within ourselves, but it's so beautiful to allow ourselves to be held.
Totally.
Yeah.
You can hold yourself in that. But it's also allowing someone else to hold you, because you always have to hold yourself.
And it's not realistic and it's not sustainable.
Nah.
You know, so I feel like we've just created this big bubble that's just, it's popping, you know, and something that you spoke to that I really want, I'm kind of watching the time because I know we need to wrap up, but you spoke to, a lot of people would assume in, your example with the journey with the masculine and feminine, that it was a wounded masculine, but it was actually a wounded feminine. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that in that scenario, if you don't have that relationship within yourself, then your masculine, it doubles down, right? So then it's doubling down. So it's like, okay, right, I got this. Like, I'm doing this. And then that's what it is. And so, yeah, there can be so much confusion around that. So I really, really love that you spoke to that.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not going to say like I don't have wounding in my masculine or haven't, especially when you go through some of the traumas, but it's like I don't blame masculine or the feminine. It's like I think we all have wounding in both that needs to be looked at. But when you look at a woman who's masculine dominant, it's not about making her not masculine dominant. Right? Because if you look at your astrology, we've got feminine and masculine signs, and depending on the placements and stuff, like I am in some areas of my life very masculine. So it's just like you said, it's integrating and merging. So the relationship between the two, right? Because when I found out, I like still clear as day, when I found out that it was my feminine that was wounded, and I saw how my masculine, I saw it and I felt it, and it was so powerful and potent, and I connected with her to start healing that relationship. She wanted to be healed. And like my masculine, he was tired. He wanted her to be healed too. Step up. And it's like when you create that dialogue, interdependent relationship for yourself, like it's powerful. And it affects, and we've talked about a lot of things here today, and I'm like, and this is where like I talk about the seven pillars of well-being, right? So emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, relationship to self and others, right? So when you transform one area of your life, it affects all areas. So this is where like, we started off talking about business and finances, and we've ended up talking masculine, feminine, sex and relationships, because it's so fucking related.
So related.
How you show up in the bedroom is how you're showing up in your business.
So true.
How are you showing up in the bedroom?
Absolutely. One more question before we wrap up. I feel like I could talk to you all day.
Yeah, I love it.
What is turning you on right now?
My relationship. Can I be real? Like, honestly,
yes.
What's turning on right now? I'm taking, I think we're all taking a bit of time of reflection. And I've been really working on how I can surrender more in my relationship, and just the discoveries and the growth in there. It's turning me on, man. Like, it's just like in ways that I couldn't even, like, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And then how that gets to show up in other areas, like seeing how my relationship with my children is being impacted by that. So because I'm softening more, and I don't know. I feel like the push is especially with these times in COVID. I want to help the visionaries. I want to help people around money, but I'm also very mindful of how people are feeling right now. And I think now is not really the time to be like trying to force people into, things that they're not ready for. So I think, I'm just in this phase of enjoying life, and whatever comes of it. And I'm really turned on by my reality right now, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah, no, I think that's so beautiful, and that's one of the gifts, isn't it, of doing this work, is that,
Yeah.
we get to be turned on by our reality, and that for
If
me is
you're
like,
not turned on by life, like something's
yeah,
up.
exactly.
There's nothing more
Work for them.
sexy than someone who's turned on by life.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. 100%. Abby, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I have loved just sharing this space with you and getting to know you more. Um, but yeah, just thank you for showing up today. Thank you for doing the work that you do. I think, more Abbeys in the world is just, such a beautiful thing. What you're doing is important and it matters. And I really honor you for the service and your contribution to the world. So thank you, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Such an honor. So glad. Thank you for listening. Thank you for asking questions and letting me just share all my madness.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.